So first I do the, not instruction. Now the thing is, English and German. No, I do it in English.
Yeah.
So today I'm here at the Eifel Ranch and I have a talk with Susy Baeck. Or do you say Susy Baeck? No, maybe I said
The Germans say Susy Baeck, but we say Susy Baeck.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the correct way to say it. Okay.
Yes.
Now I learned something. Yeah, so today I'm here at the beautiful Eifel Ranch. Even the weather is not so nice, but it's still beautiful.
Bad timing.
And I wanted to talk to you because I was thinking about, as you know, I really like how you keep the horses, how you treat the horses, how you raise the horses, also how you breed the horses. But since I came here, I don't know, it's already a longer time ago because we bought Stride like maybe 8 years ago. So I was the first time here. Mm. Oh, no, I bought Twix before.
Twix,
so
right.
There was, 17. Yeah. So it's 8 years ago.
8 years ago.
And I was, from the first time on, I was really a big fan of, I have to say I was kind of amazed how you keep the horses. Because in my opinion, what I really like is they're as close to the nature as you can have them and still have like...
Sport horses.
Exactly.
Yes. We try to do it a bit different than the rest. We really think it's important that the horses are out as much as possible. And I know I got some big eyes when I was driving around in the summer pasture and they would see my big show horse that won the Derby like last week in Italy, running around with his friends, staying out day and night in the field with grass, no pellets, no hay, no grain, just, grass. And then they were like, that horse looks like your show horse. And I said, it doesn't look like my show horse. It is my show horse. He has a week of vacation. He had a big show. It was successful. And you cannot have a better, after competition as being in a field, walking, running up and down day and night and not being stabled. Because I think if you would talk with any other person who's doing sport on a high level, sitting still in your chair is not the way to recover from an big sport event. Mm-hmm. So actually that's what too many people do is, I'm gonna give him rest, which is good after a show, but not if that means if he's gonna be in a box 24 hours a day. Mm-hmm. So that's why we just threw them out. They were just going to the pasture, having 1, 2, 3 weeks off, and then when they go out, they don't lose condition because they run and they play. And then before the next show, you need 2-3 weeks to get them back in shape, and then you go again. It's different with the young horse that you still need to train. But once the horse is finished, you don't need to stop and spin him every day. You just need to keep him in a good shape, which is really ideal when you have a big summer pasture.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I can totally agree with that. And also I would say the social part of the horse, because I do know, like, you keep them in a herd, like yes. Mares and geldings separate, or how do you?
It depends a bit, some mares like to have a gelding in their group, some don't. So sometimes we have only mares, sometimes we have only geldings. Sometimes, most of the time, when you put a gelding, you can put only one and several mares. But if you do like 2 mares, 2 geldings, then they will start to fight over the women,
crazy,
like real life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So most of the times when you mix them, 1 gelding is the max. We try to match up as much as possible. And if they know to be in group for their whole life, I think there's not more risk putting them together, even though if they have sliding plates. You can put unsocial horses together, they can break each other's leg if they're not used to it without plates. But if they know how to be in a herd, it's not more dangerous than any other herd. They look at each other, they use their ears and their body to communicate, and there is a rank. They know who is the boss. If the boss turns the ears, they will go away. And if they will kick, they will warn, and it will never be a kick to hurt somebody else. You know, it's communication. It's not aggressive talking.
Yeah.
So for me, the only time, for sure, if you have 100 horses for 25 years, you have accidents. But when it happened, it was most of the time with horses that were not in a herd when they were young. That's the dangerous part.
Yeah,
So-
I can agree to that, because every time when we have a horse from you, you know, from the Eifel Ranch at home, they're so social, they're so nice. And every time I say, oh, don't, you know, like to my sister or my mother, I say, oh, don't worry, you know, they're from the Eifel Ranch, we can put them together, don't worry.
Yeah.
It's
They-
true,
they know.
It works.
And they will scream maybe, or they will turn their ass, but they never fight to kill, you know.
Yeah.
Just, you know, they just warn and say, hey, I'm the boss. But it's never to hurt the other horse. And that's a big difference.
Yeah. So now we are already deep in what I want to talk about with you, but let's go back. Like, how did that all start? So how did the Eifel Ranch start? I mean, was it like your family plan to build a place like this, or did it grow from, you know, small to big? Or I mean, it is
Yeah.
big. So, but you had a breeding plan and a training plan,
Yeah.
or you only had, what was the idea, or how?
It started actually with Sira, my sister. She was still a teenager and she didn't want to study. That was actually the first thing. She wanted to be a horse trainer or want to do something with horses, because she was not into going to college. So then my parents said, okay, what do you want to do? You want to do something with horses. We lived in the northern part of Belgium, close to the border of Holland, and there is no room. There is just houses, no pastures, you know, there's too many people on in a small area. So then my parents said, if you want to do something with horses, we have to move to the place where we had our holiday home, which is here at the Eifel Ranch. That's what we used to come just in weekends and in vacation time. So then they said, okay, if you finish your secondary school or high school,
Yep.
we're gonna live there with you if you want to continue doing something with horses. So she finished her high school, and then she came to live at the Eifel Ranch. And then my parents was like, okay, horses is very general, and what do you want to do? And she got involved with Western riding at the manege where she was. And then my parents said, okay, we only have 2 daughters, so it's maybe good to have quarter horses instead of jumping horses, because they're not so crazy and not so dangerous. So we want to keep our 2 daughters, because I was also riding. I wanted to go to college and study, but we were both riding. So then they said, okay, it's a good idea to do the Western, because the horses are small, they're nice, even the stallions are easy. So in 1995, my parents went to the States, and they bought 10 pregnant mares and 2 studs.
Wow.
So that was the start. So in 96, we had 10 babies, 10 brood mares, and 2 studs to make new babies for the year after. So that's how it started. And it started with paint horses, not quarter horses. Because my mom and my father, they liked the colors, you know. So they just said a black and white one and sorrel white one. It was all round. It was not really reining breeds, you know. It was just all round paint horses. And then my sister got involved into reining, and we bought our first quarter mare. Also reining, more, not totally reining, but more direction reining. And I think the year later we bought little Gump. And that's actually also a funny story because my parents were just in the States. They bought the Paint Horse Journal. And on the cover of the Paint Horse Journal was like Bill Horn with tragedies.
Yeah.
And they just said, oh, where does he live? Oh, it's not that far from here. Let's just call him. They didn't know Bill Horn, which is a big legend, but they didn't know him at all. And they just called and said, can we stop? And I don't know if everybody knows Bill Horn, but he's not a big talker. And he was like, ooh, and he didn't really answer. And then they were like, did he say yes or did he say no? Well, anyway, next day they drove there. And Bill Horn opened, and he was not really into giving lessons and having people around. But his wife at that time, Kim, she was like, oh yeah, come in and blah blah blah. And then they started to talk, and my mom and Kim, they really got along really good because they both like to smoke and they like wine, so they had a really good time. And Sarah was just sitting there like being bored, you know. And after a couple of days, because they spent quite some time together, then Bill said to Sarah, okay, leave those women. They just talk and talk and talk and drink and smoke. We're gonna ride. And then Sarah was allowed to ride. And then Bill saw the talent of Sarah, and then they were like a match.
Those two.
Yeah. They were very close in a very short period. Sarah was even allowed, I think she was there for a week, and then she was allowed to ride Tragedias.
Cool.
And all the girls who were working there were jealous because they were not allowed to sit on that horse. And Sarah was already allowed to sit on it after a week, you know. So they really find soulmates. They really find each other, which was funny because my sister never did any reining before. And she just started at the legend Bill Horn, you know.
Yeah, which is not so bad, I would say.
No, but it was really funny because, yeah, it was just because my mom and Kim got along so good that she rolled into the situation. But so that's how it started. Then we bought Little Gump at Bill Horn's place. And then we started breeding more and more direction reining with the paints. But then after a while we realized, okay, if we really want to go into the sport, we have to buy some more reining mares. So then we sold some paint brood mares and bought some reining. And that's how we slowly went in breeding direction reining horses.
And with the plan breeding for yourself, you know, like for Sarah and you, or breeding for
selling.
Yeah, so that was the plan.
Yeah,
breeding.
That was the plan. Yeah. We would breed, Sarah would train them, and then we would sell them. That was the idea. Yeah.
And okay, the breeding part started like this. And I mean, I would say you have a big knowledge of how to keep horses. Mm-hmm. Where did you learn that?
I think the way we raise the horses is a bit like, you know, a bit like a training program. You go and take lessons everywhere and you just take out what works for you. So I always went to many clinics, reining clinics from different trainers, and I do a bit of rollback from this trainer and a bit of stop. You know, you just mix all the parts that you learn and that you like into your program. And I think we did the same with the breeding. We went on a lot of places in the States, also talked to a lot of people in Europe, also the jumping people. And then we just took out what we like and we tried. And for sure we made mistakes also. But after all those years of experience, you have your own system. And I think it's working. I think it's for the horses a good way. Not only mentally, but also, you know, when you breed horses, you need to sell them. And to be able to sell them, you need to pass a vet check. So there are many things that you know after 25 years or almost 30 years already, that if you do it this way with this food, this amount of exercise, this amount of hay, everything will do, then 90% of our breeding, of our horses that are raised here will pass the vet check, then you know you're doing a good job.
Talking about that, I just remember, a few weeks ago you told me, because it was really good, because I still learning, but I had like my babies at home on a hard ground.
Yes.
And then you saw it on an Instagram post.
I saw it on Facebook and I was like, okay, Susy, what are you going to do? I called my sister. I said, did you see the photo of Adrian on Facebook? And she was like, yeah, I saw it. Yeah, what should I do? And she already knew what I was talking about. I didn't even have to explain. And then she said, yeah, if you think you're close enough to tell her, just call her. And I was like, okay, because I don't want to interfere in everybody's way of working, I don't want to be the person who knows everything, because I don't. I still learn every year. I change little things every year. You're never too old to learn. But I did saw your baby standing on a ground which is not a muddy ground, really clean, which I understand for people, they like to see like a clean, no mud, no shit, very clean environment, which is of course good. But for young horses, when they play and run and roll back and spin in the pasture, it's really important that the ground is kind of slippery and not... that there's not too much pressure on the joints when they turn and the foot doesn't slide over the surface.
When it's hard and stuck,
with rubber, it's not good, because unless it's very slippery rubber, but then it's probably too slippery and also dangerous. But you have the rubber that's not slippery, and when they leave the hoof on the ground and they turn like a rollback or a spin, there's so much pressure on the joints. And if they do that all winter long, especially stallions that can really play like idiots, then when you do the x-rays as a 2-year-old, you will already see some arthrose or, some damage on the joints if you have a not slippery ground. So I know everybody thinks, if there's too much, they will get scratches and blah, blah, blah. But really the scratches, it's just... Even we never have them. I think it's because it's really cold here and all the bacterials and stuff just die from the cold. But scratches is temporary, it's and arthrose and stuff like that. It's for the rest of their life. So don't get frustrated if your horse is in the mud. Just think about the fact that his x-rays will be clean when he's a 2-year-old. I think that's more important.
Totally. And how did you learn that?
I did get some horses in my program, not from the start. So they came in like 2 months before we did the x-rays. And I think that year we had like 25 2-year-olds to do x-rays on. And the 3 that came from that client, they all had the same issues. And then I was like, how is it possible? We did 25 and the 3 of that owner have issues on the x-rays. How can it happen? And then we start talking, and then I said, okay, where were they before they arrived? And then they explained, a really nice concrete floor, and inside the stall there was a rubber mat. And then we start talking with the vets, and there was just... The only explanation for those x-rays were the way they were kept. And that's actually how we find out. It was really not good for those 2-year-olds, but
that's how you learn it.
That's how we learned. And other things, every week I have suppliers from grain that want to sell me grain, and I'm always like, maybe it's a bit cheaper what they offer me, but I will only know in 4 years or in 3 years if changing food will be a negative impact. And since my vet, who is judging all the x-rays from the 2-year-olds, is always saying to me, Susy, don't change anything. Because if you look to the average of your x-rays on your 2-year-old, you're doing a good job regarding OCDs, arthrose, you know, all the... For sure, I always have one horse with an issue if you do 20.
Yeah.
You know, it's normal. It's not that you can prevent some stuff, you know. They cannot be all 100%. But the average is really good. So then I'm really afraid to change anything, especially the food, because that already starts with feeding the pregnant broodmares. So you feed the pregnant broodmares some kind of food, and then you feed the yearling, the babies, the yearlings, the 2-year-old, and then you take the X-rays. So it's 3 years, if you change food, that you will know if it will be bad.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid to do it. I just stuck with my food.
And so how do you feed them? How do you feed them, broodmares, babies, and so on?
So we have a brand. I'm going to make a good publicity now for Havens. I'll have to inform them. But we give Vertolac, which is a part of the brand, to the pregnant mares. And we have a special grain for the babies until they stop growing, so until they're like 2.5. And then we have the sport.
When they're being ridden?
Yeah, from 2.5, 3, we change to the adult grain. But we give special food to the broodmares and to the young horses that are still growing. But that we only do in winter, because in summertime, like 6 months a year, we have enough pasture and enough grass to keep them only on grass. And for that, you also need good pastures. So we have also developed a system over the years that we don't have to put any
Dünge.
What's the English word?
I
Fertilizer.
Oh, yeah.
Fertilizer. So we don't put any fertilizer on our pasture. We do once in every several years a bit of cow kalk, and sometimes a bit of shit from the cows.
Yeah,
Gulle, yeah.
I don't know in English. Yeah.
So, but we never do the
That's crazy.
the not natural fertilizer. That we never do. And that makes your pasture like very diverse, that you don't have only this particular grass. We have a lot of different grass types. We have herbs, you know, all kind of plants which are healthy, because it's really all different. We even get money from the government because our pastures are so diverse from flowers, grass flowers.
Yeah.
They come every year and they count and they see what kind of grass, and it's really, you don't see it anymore, because the farmers with the cows, they just put gulle fertilizer.
They don't want to have these flowers,
they just want to have the grass that gives the milk with protein, which we don't want for the horses. We want to have a mix of everything.
Totally.
But you need 1 acre of hectare for a horse to be able to manage them like this in summer.
Yeah.
And this, I understand, for many people is a luxury situation not everybody has. If you want to keep a horse 6 months a year on grass only, you need to have 1 hectare per horse.
Yeah. And I remember, you know, as we bought Clark, as you were telling now that you only give grass, and he was a 2-year-old, June, I think. We were on the pasture, he was with all the boys out. We came, and I mean, everyone looked like perfect. And my sister and me, we were like, okay. And I think I asked you there, what do you feed them? And you were like, oh, grass, only grass. And I was so, you know, because I do know all the other training stables, they push them, they give them so much food in the 2 or 3-year-old year that they will have problems. And I was amazed how good they look like just by grass.
No, they can, even the older horses, when they get their vacation and they go to the summer pasture, not the pasture around the barn, because they're over booked, or how you say it. There are too many horses in the pastures around the barn, but the summer pasture that we only use in summer, even if show horse, after a show, when you put them there for a break for 2-3 weeks, you don't have to feed them. They just have the grass. But then again, you have horses that are born here that you can put there for 3 weeks and they will eat and eat and eat. If you have a horse that is not raised at Eifel Gold Range, they will go to that pasture and they will lose weight in the beginning, because every time they feel a drop of rain, they're at the gate like, hey, I want to go in, It's raining, it's night, it's dark, you cannot leave me here. And they get nervous and they start to walk and they don't take time to eat. So first they always lose weight, and then people come like, oh, my horse got skinny. I said, yeah, but that's the time, they have to go through it. If they're not used to stay out day and night, they are nervous, they have to be horse again. And then sometimes it takes 2 or 3 months, and then they accept the situation, and then they start to be good and fat again. But it's funny, because when I always see it, when it's a horse that's not raised here, when it starts raining or it starts dark, they start to be like walking at the gate, making the grass go away, because they keep on walking next to the fence. And it's hard, sometimes it's 2 days, sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's a month before they realize, okay, they're not gonna bring me in, they're not gonna feed me, I just need to stop being an idiot and eat grass.
Being a horse.
Yeah, but it's sometimes sad, because there are a lot of horses that don't even know that grass is for eating,
Yeah, I remember when I had, you were also an influence, that I came home and I was like, now we leave the horses out, at least half a day.
Yeah.
And, I still had the boarding horses, and the owners were like, oh, are you sure? And then I was, yes, I am sure.
Yeah.
And also these horses, or when a new horse came, it took them a few months until, or even sometimes, that summer. And then the next summer they understood, I will stay out for 6 or 12 hours.
Yeah.
It is how it is.
Yeah.
And then they learn, like people say, he wants to go in. Then I'm like, leave him. Just don't care, and he will understand.
Yeah.
Being a horse.
Yeah, being a horse. That's right.
And so, and right now you still have the breeding. The breeding is still the big part. I mean, I do know Berin is working here, or it's half, like training horses, breeding, or...
Actually, where it went wrong, it's not really wrong, but where it went different, is that my parents were really into making a breeding facility. We even had a vet here, like permanent, working for us. And then my sister was like, okay, that's nice, but I really don't want to breed. I want to show, I want to train. So in the end, my sister needed more like a training facility and not a breeding facility. And that's actually where the plan just didn't work out as we saw it, because then my sister was leaving to CS to work for Schumacher, after in Italy to work for Elementa. Now she's in the States, because she's really focusing on showing and training and winning. And it doesn't, for sure she likes it when she's doing good on a horse she bred herself, but that's not her main thing. She just wants to be successful, can be on any horse. And my sister is so ambitious that in the end Europe was just not big enough for her,
Yeah.
And now she left to the States, and I don't think she will ever come back. For sure, the climate in Belgium is not making it easier. She went to Italy and she loves Italy. And when she was working still in Belgium, she would have frostbites all winter long.
Yeah.
And her skin is not made for cold.
Yeah.
And it sounds really like a stupid thing, but if you have frostbite 6 months a year, everywhere on your legs and on your toes, it does make you think about, moving, yeah. So I don't think she will ever want to come back to Belgium just for the climate, which is stupid. And also because she now tasted the business in the States, which I also think she will not be able to come back to Europe. Maybe when she, quits being a trainer, when she retires, she maybe will come back to Belgium or to Europe, but not as a horse trainer. So talking about the future, it's kind of sad, but also realistic, I have 2 kids. They don't do anything with horses. They play soccer. And since I don't want to give them a facility which they don't want to be part of, the only thing we can do for the future is to sell the ranch, which is sad, but the only wise thing to do. It used to be a business where my mom, my dad, me and my sister were fully, with 4. And now I'm already here for a couple of years on my own. And I love my job, don't get me wrong. And I would love to do it still for another 10 years. But if you don't have kids that will take over, then you just have to start thinking about selling. And if there's somebody coming tomorrow which will make this facility, like their love, then we'll sell tomorrow. If we don't find anybody, we'll sell in a couple of years. But on the long term, it's the only thing we can do if Sarah doesn't want to come back to Europe. And like I said, the facility is so big, it would be stupid to have just a training facility here. And the combination of training facility and a breeding facility is not so easy. That we tried just before she left to the CS, and I think it was hard. It was disease-wise, it's really complicated to have both at the same facility. If you look to the States or even in Europe, they never combine those facilities,
That's
breeding
true.
and training.
Oh.
And if you would just train horses here, you have 80 hectares that you probably don't use because the summer pasture are nice for breaks, but you cannot bring them there every day because it's just too far.
Yeah.
It takes too much time to bring them there. So you won't use those pastures far away if you only have training horses here.
So the best thing is still a breeding facility.
I think that's
because of the land.
Because of the land. It
Yeah.
would be a shame not to use those pastures.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, you say being realistic, and I think it's very important to be realistic on a certain point of life,
Yeah.
So, and for me, it makes totally sense when you say your kids are not interested in. And what I also know, it's physically very tough to work on a ranch and to be every day on the ranch. And when you imagine, okay, in 10 years, you're not going to be younger, not stronger, not, so that's the other part. It's not like an office job where, you can do it until you're 80.
No.
So, yeah, these are very logical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love to do it, but I think we have to look at the future as well.
Yeah, true. Totally.
So that's...
Yeah. So, very interesting, really, I have to say. And you shared a lot of knowledge, which I always love. And you always can call me and tell me what I should do different with the babies.
But I also want to tell to people that I really love to share my knowledge. So I never told anybody, it's a secret, everybody who calls me and knows me and everybody can ask me questions. I love to share my knowledge. And for sure, what I say is not always correct. I will still learn and I would still love to know how everybody does stuff. But it's also stupid if you see somebody making a mistake that you already did, you know. So then I really would like to tell people, you know, don't do that. I have experience, you know. I always
help.
I can. I always give examples what I did and what I did wrong and what I changed. So I think everybody should be open and listening to everybody, you know. It's not a secret.
No, and this is all it's kind of my philosophy, because I really believe in when you share knowledge, it doesn't hurt you at all.
No,
it's not that you keep something and it's your secret and it makes you strong. And I think it's always good if you share knowledge or help others, and then the end.
Another good example of that is a big vet clinic in Belgium. They now make a group and they start to have vets all over Europe to participate, even I think in the States. And before, the vets were always a bit like, you know, protecting their business. They didn't want to share their knowledge. And now this group of vets, they start to be open, making the protocols like public.
Wow.
So that everybody knows and that they can adjust and that everybody shares. All the vets that now are participating in them, they all share their knowledge.
Wow.
And they adjust the protocols. And I think it's making Belgium really a strong, big horse country because of that. We have a lot of jumping horses here, but we also have the knowledge from breeding, vets-wise, you know, and operations and clinics. And it's all about sharing the knowledge. I think
even if you share something like this, it could also help them if someone else knows about it and tells, hey, I had the same situation, I did this. So again, knowledge,
you know,
sharing knowledge helps.
I sometimes have cases that I never saw in my life. And then I start sending emails to all the people I know, like, hey, help me out. I have here a situation.
Smart.
Well, what can I do? And I have now a network of people, not only vets, but also breeding managers from the States that I can just send. If I have a situation, I know them, and vice versa, you know, if they have something, they can always ask me.
And I can always ask you.
Yeah.
Every year I have a new challenge. I call you, look, my problem.
I love to share that kind of stuff. Yeah. Even with my experience as a show rider, I am a non-pro.
Yeah.
But still, I did a lot of shows, and when I'm at the show and I cannot not help people. You know, if they make mistakes that I did before, I said, hey, you don't have to do what I say, but hear me out. This is my experience. Maybe if you try this and this and this, it'll work. And I start judging now. So for judging, I have the same, you know. I really like when I did my first judging show in Paris. And I love it when the people come to me later and say like, hey, you gave me a -1/2 there. Why? And a +1/2 there. You know, I really love to explain why I give
and how the
certain
system works.
Yes, yes, because people love to complain about judges. You know, oh, they have a spread, and you know that one marked me a 70.
They don't like me.
They don't like me. They always take it personal, and then the other one is 72. But if you have questions, even for judges, just go to them. They're not dangerous, you know. They don't bite. They also, not maybe all the judges, but me as a judge, I love to explain people why I give certain points, positive and negative. Yeah. I think that's the fun part of the whole horse industry, is talking about it and sharing experience.
Good. That's a very good last sentence, I would say, because that rounds up my whole philosophy.
Yes, good.
So thank you very, very much for that discussion.
You're welcome.
So continue like this.
Yes, I will.
And thank you. Have a good
You're welcome.
time. Bye. Bye-bye.